I am always grateful when I found a new horror thing that I was unaware of. So I'm trying to pass it along through this series. If you're new to the Great Obscure Horror series, check out the original here. Aswang. So, in general, you've heard me say before that Hollywood does sucky horror movies. But independents can do good horror movies. Aswang, which is the name of a Filipino demon that feeds on the undead, and this is the 1994, I think there's some other Aswangs, but the 1994 one, filmed in Wisconsin, features this Filipino demon. Of course, Americans and Filipinos have a long history together, generally positive one. One of the things I really like about Aswang is that the vampire itself is portrayed more as geriatric than a predatory, I mean, there's definitely predatory things going on. Don't get me wrong. It's a scary movie. And one of the other things I really like about it is it's filmed in Wisconsin. So the director doesn't really have access to like Hollywood actors. So what he gets are, local actors who mostly were in, local film, in the cities around Wisconsin. Well, a lot of the plays these guys put on were musical comedies. So these are a lot of things. They're essentially musical comedy actors doing a horror movie. And the thing that makes it great is that one thing you learn in musical comedy is to have your timing absolutely spot on. And they do. The main villain is funny and villainous. He's like, his villainy is really bad, but he has a sense of timing. Everything is right on cue. It's a delight to watch them. I love the movie and recommend it without reservation. All these I do, so I guess this goes without saying. Number 12, Say Yes. So Korean movies are, if you're not familiar with them, are really pretty good. At least they've been the way since the 1990s. Now, Say Yes is a cross between The Hitcher and Cape Fear, in a sense. These people pick up a hitchhiker, this couple, and he's super bad. If you're a fan of films like Takashi Miike's Audition or stuff like that, Say Yes will do it for you. It's so strong that I haven't watched it very many times because it's powerful. Lines like,
if you just say yes, I'll stop.
But you don't want to say yes, but you also want them to stop, so say yes. Number 13, Congo from 1932. Okay, this is an amazing movie that's I think it's on Amazon or something, but Congo. So Walter Huston plays a paraplegic who is deep in the depths of the Congo, and he uses basically stage magic, like rabbit in the hat kind of tricks to convince the local tribe that he is a powerful magician. He also has a few cures and stuff, but basically they think he's magical and he's marked by the gods because he's crippled, so they do what he says. And these are not mild, beaten down natives. These are aggressive, dangerous guys, but they're afraid of him. He has a pet chimp. One of the few movies I've seen with an evil chimp, which I loved. And he's got some white people with him, including Lupi Velas. Wow, she's a babe. She's there, her sweat's shining. And all these people he keeps under his control by addicting them to heroin. So they are all addicts. And the whole movie is about Walter Huston planning his revenge against the guy that left him abandoned with his back broken, and he's gonna get him, and how the revenge finally comes out, and the revenge proves super awful for both Walter and for the target of the revenge. It's a really weird look at this twisted mind. It's 1932, so it's before the Hays Code. It's excellent for a movie that's so old. Okay, number 14, Jennifer. So this is one of the Masters of Horror season, and in general, I'm not like a huge buff of the Masters of Horror, but they have some good ones in it. But basically, what they did is they took a director and gave him $1 million and said, "Here, make a movie, and then we'll show it." And so, and the deal was they'd show it no matter what you did. Well, Dario Argento did one and did Jennifer, and then they didn't want to show it because it had like parts that were too strong. But so they still put it on DVD and you can get it. But they did edit it when they promised they wouldn't. Now, when I was a kid, I read Creepy magazine and Eerie magazine. And Creepy 63 had a story in it called Jennifer. It's in fact the origin of this movie, and it wrecked me. I had nightmares about Jennifer. That was the scariest story I'd read in a horror comic ever. So this is really two horrors that I'm talking about here with Jennifer. The original Creepy 63 story, which you can get in one of the many, I think Dark Horse is reprinting the EC things, but it's also the movie by Dario Argento, Jennifer, with one N. That is an amazing film. A guy's in the woods. He sees a woman about to be killed by a man with an axe. He shoots the guy with the axe to save her, and then she's horribly deformed, but she has nowhere to go. He takes her home, and then things keep getting worse. And it's like, what is Jennifer? What's going on? It's, she has a mental handicap. She can't talk, but she can act, and she does. Great Obscure Horror 15, A Cat in the Brain. Well, Lucio Fulci has famously was described as the parts that are unwatchable for being too gory are unwatchable for being too artsy. And although I love Lucio Fulci, I kind of agree with that statement. So Cat in the Brain is a combination of the gory and the artsy, and it's one of his more artsy ones, but it works. Usually when he goes artsy, I hate it, right? So what's going on here is that the main character in A Cat in the Brain is Lucio Fulci, the director, who's doing a horror movie. And he keeps having these visions from his movies, so there is some stock footage in it, but not super long. And he has visions of these terrible axe murders and stuff. And then when he snaps out of it, he finds out that the axe murder or whatever happened. He feels like there's a cat in his brain chewing it. He says, am I doing these murders? I don't know. And the whole thing eventually kind of becomes a giallo, where Lucio Fulci is like, am I killing these people? Am I too obsessed with horror? It's a really interesting take on the nature of horror. And I'm not usually a fan of the idea of, oh, horror is bad, but we're watching horror, and this is a horror movie about how horror is bad, and how can we do this? And I don't have a tolerance. I say, look, if you're going to do a horror movie, at least own up to it and say, yeah, horror's cool. But Cat in the Brain does it in such a way that I'm not offended. I like it, and it's bizarre. It's also weird to see the movie's director actually be a character in it. Wow. Great Obscure Horror 16, Bone Machine, 1992. Okay, I'm leaving movies again. This is Tom Waits. And Tom Waits is a singer who is super popular among other artists. Not so well known among the population at large, though he should be. Almost every album he does, he kind of he doesn't switch genres, but he moves on to something different. I remember when I was in high school, a friend of mine, actually it was in college, a friend of mine came in, he made me listen to one of Tom Waits' albums, Closing Time. Man, I loved it, and I said, where'd you get this? And he said, well, I went down to the record shop. I said, yeah. And I looked for him in the rock section, and he wasn't there. So then I looked for him in the blues section, and he wasn't there. And I went to the guy and said, where's Tom Waits? He said, here in country western. Country western? Tom Waits has a lot of things, but he's not country western. And the owner of the shop said, well, when I put him in rock, they say he's blues. And when I put him in blues, the blues fans say, no, put him in rock. So I put him in country western, they don't know who he is, and they don't care. So that was my introduction to Tom Waits, but I loved him. Bone Machine is an extremely dark album. It's got things with names such as Murder in the Red Barn and The Earth Dies Screaming, which are powerful, metal-heavy, driving things, down to quieter pieces such as The Ocean Doesn't Want Me Today, all stripped down, Such a Scream, I Don't Want to Grow Up and Live in a Big Old Tomb on Main Street. The most positive song in the whole thing is a cry of desperation. Jesus gonna be here. But man alive, this might not be Tom Waits' best album, but it is his scariest. And if you want more, check out The Black Rider by Tom Waits, scripted by William S. Burroughs. So The Black Rider is a German fairy tale where this guy goes to wants to marry a girl, but the dad won't let her marry him because he wants her to marry a good hunter who can support her. So he goes to the crossroads, finds the devil, and he makes a deal to get magic bullets so he can win the shooting competition and get the girl. And that when the devil gives him the bullets, he says, some of the bullets are for you and some of the bullets are for me. And then as Tom Waits puts it, the magic bullets never miss. And you think you'll just save the magic bullets for a bad day. But pretty soon, all your days are bad without the bullets. Now, not all the stuff is these creepy, dark things like the Black Rider and Bone Machine, but that's a sign of an amazing artist. So there it is. Okay, Great Obscure Horror 17, AM 1200. So AM 1200 is a short. It's only 39 minutes long, and it's about American religious talk radio in a sense. It's got some really good actors in it that I've seen in other films that you probably have too, and the plot line where we have, for example, a person saying, "At first we broadcast and it received. Now it broadcasts and we receive." And it is totally Lovecraftian to the core. And only 39 minutes long, doesn't overstay its welcome. Great Obscure Horror 18. Psalm 88, right out of the Holy Bible. So this is the gloomiest of all the Psalms. It's a lonely, bleak cry against the encircling darkness. There's no trace of hope or happiness in it, and so it is dark. Now, I prefer the King James Bible, not because it is more accurate. I know there's a subset of Protestants that think it's the best Bible for that reason. I like it because it's amazing literature. And while I do think it's important to understand the Bible if you're going to read it, why else read it, right? I do also like the wording of the King James, the powerful ways it's phrased. It's really one of the great works of Western literature. And the tales and the stories and the way they're written is really, really excellent. And Psalm 88, if you want to read a Bible psalm that is a wail of hopelessness, that's the one. Number 19, Ambrose Bierce's Civil War stories. So Ambrose Bierce is one of the great American writers, and he wrote a lot of stuff, including some of the creepiest supernatural horror stories of all time, such as The Damned Thing and The Death of Halpin Fraser. Ambrose Bierce fought in the Civil War. He wrote several tales about that, and these tales, which have no supernatural elements at all, are grimly fearsome. I'd say Chickamauga is the strongest of them, but they're all amazing. So in general, like a thing a lot of people like to do is say, let's do an anti-war movie or anti-war literature because war is bad. Well, yeah, sure, war is bad, but just saying war is bad, I mean, to score points or to signal how great you are is like, it's weak. It almost has the opposite effect on me when I see a movie like that. I say, man, war can't be that bad if these guys hate it. They're a bunch of saps. But the regular conventional anti-war stuff you see is really weak sauce compared to Ambrose Bierce's grisly snippets. You read The Horseman in the Sky or One Kind of Officer from Ambrose Bierce, and next time you see some stupid puerile modern attempt at it, you'll sneer like I do. Ambrose Bierce makes you hate the idea of war. A horrible act that must only be engaged in to stop a worse war. Most of the modern dilettantes just sneer at war from a distance in their superiority. They never really engage it. They just like, war is bad and we're above it. But Bierce gets right down there in the middle of it. I've never fought in a war. My father-in-law did. My grandfather did. I have communication with people that have. When they talk about it, it's so powerful compared to, like I said, a typical anti-war screed that I suggest going to the real thing. Number 20, Matthias Grunvald. So Matthias Grunvald is a painter, yay, from Germany. Now, he lived about the year 1500, and at this time, painting was going into the new Renaissance classical style, away from the old medieval stuff. But Grunwald was a reactionary. He was firmly set in the Middle Ages. Tragically, only 10 of his paintings survive, plus some drawings. I blame the Swedes. A bunch of Grunewald's paintings were captured by the Swedes in one of their wars in Germany. See, war's bad. And they were sent back by boat. The boat sank. Bad, Sweden. Interestingly, Matthias Grunewald's wife had to be locked up for being possessed by a demon. Maybe she was just mentally ill, or both. I mean, being mentally ill and possessed by a demon kind of go together. Anyway, There we have from 19 to 20, 10 more tales or images or ideas I'm hoping you're not familiar with. I'll say that the best of you hasn't seen them all or knows about them all. And if you have, like I said, I owe you a drink next time we see each other.